Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Poppin' was cracking this D. About to react to this video by Rapaholics. This is titled "The Rise and Fall of Young Money" documentary. Damn, Drake is in the thumbnail. Is he the cause of the fall? Is he the reason? Let's see what they have to say. Let's watch.
Young Money Entertainment, my own
Oh,
thing.
look at Baby Wayne.
We taking over.
I cannot believe that this was only a little over 20 years ago. And just look what Lil Wayne looks like now. He looks like he's aged 70 years. He looks so bad, and he's not even that old. But drugs have not been good to him, and no shade, but these are just the facts. And he looked like this only 20 years ago. Think of Beyonce, how she looked 20 years ago and how she looks now. Great, still amazing. Don't do drugs, kids.
Young Money Entertainment, my own.
Don't drink heavily either. The lean and all that as well is going to have you aging like milk. Don't do it.
Thanks to the new thing, man. Holla at your boy. We taking over.
I got this rapper from Canada. His name is Drake. He's real good. He's actor and all that. He's in the Brassy High. They're all better than me. That's why I came on first. Y'all gonna love me. But once they come out, y'all gonna forget about me.
I got my man Lil
Wow, he's
Shepard.
the
I have
boss
the
of
beautiful Miss Chanel. We all know Nicki Minaj. And last but not
But we
least,
haven't forgotten him, obviously. But
6
Drake is
years
that nigga.
later.
Well, Drake was that nigga. I don't know what's gonna happen now.
Wayne has established a label called Young Money. Now, Young Money Entertainment is a part of Cash Money, and he sued Cash Money and Birdman for $51 million, claiming he didn't get paid. He's looking at them and said, "You guys are not paying us for the albums of Drake, Nicki, and Tyga."
That situation was a lot of mess that needed to be cleaned up over the years. And you just think of where those guys started. I mean, it's only right that there's going to be a lot of gray area over 20 years of hustlers coming out of New Orleans to go on and pretty much keep Universal alive.
If you know anything about hip-hop, then you know that Young Money is probably the biggest record label of all time. Lil Wayne was at the height of his career when he started the label. He was the last rapper to sell 1 million copies in the first week with his album The Carter 3. And instead of prioritizing his own megastardom, he stepped back from the spotlight and introduced the world to the biggest rappers today, like Drake, Nicki Minaj, and Tyga. But in 2024, you probably wouldn't recognize any of the new Young Money artists. And even though Young Money birthed some of the biggest artists in hip-hop, the downfall of the label was actually a lot darker than you might think. But before we get into the downfall of the label, we've got to understand the foundation it was built on. In 2005, nearly all of the original Cash Money members had left the label due to money issues. The last man standing was Lil Wayne, who was discovered by Birdman and signed to Cash Money in the early 90s at the young age of 12 years old.
Oh my God.
By 2005, Wayne was on his way to becoming the biggest rapper in the world, and this is when he created Young Money. The profits of Young Money were split 49% going to Lil Wayne and 51% going to Birdman and Cash Money. Young Money was a company under Cash Money Records, with Cash Money owning 51% of the profits that Young Money generated. The first artists signed to Young Money were Currency, Boo, Mac Main, and Gutta Gutta. From the original Young Money roster, the only rapper who's still somewhat active is Currency. However, his time at the label was not long. He left shortly after signing, and he only dropped a couple songs on Young Money. When he was asked why he left Lil Wayne's label, Currency said, "If I had gone to Young Money later on, it might have went a different way. But when I was there, I was like, all right, Wayne's trying to make sure he's remembered as the best rapper alive. That does not entail making sure that my music gets where it needs to get to right now, even though he loves me to death." This is the case with a lot of artists in the industry, right? They sign young and take the first deal that's thrown at them, even if it's not the best. However, before Young Money even started, this seemed to be the case with almost every single artist that was signed to Cash Money. Wayne was the only original Cash Money artist left. The founders of Cash Money, Birdman and his brother Slim, signed a distribution deal with Universal Records where they keep 85% of the royalties from all of their music sales. This was unheard of at the time. It meant that Cash Money kept basically all of their artists' profits, and Birdman was then responsible for paying each artist what they were owed from their music. This led to many Cash Money artists signing contracts where they barely saw any profits from their music. The whole label, Juvenile, BG, Turk, their main producer Manny Fresh, they all left Cash Money, and they all had similar reasons for leaving. It was essentially due to Birdman's shady business dealings and his inability to pay artists what they're owed. In the late 90s, Juvenile was the biggest artist on the Cash Money label, and he ended up leaving the label at the height of his career. When he left, he said, "My reason to leave Cash Money is the same reason most artists leave a label: money. I'm working like a slave and I'm getting nothing. So I get an entertainment lawyer and found out Cash Money weren't who they said they were with me. Manny Fresh also said he
Why
left
did
the
they do
label
that
because of money.
beforehand,
And
bro?
Turk, who was part of the Hot Boys group with Lil Wayne, sued Cash Money.
And I
for
feel
money.
like people automatically assume. Let me make sure I'm recording my screen because I'll be fucking up sometimes. People automatically assume that getting a lawyer is so crazy expensive. It's so much money. It's not. First off, lawyers come in all different prices, okay? And you can literally just pay a lawyer just to look over a contract. It's not going to be that much compared to how much money you're going to lose in the long run if you don't have a lawyer look at it. So I just don't understand why these artists make the same mistake over and over and over again. Like, you could have just paid a lawyer.
$1.3 million in 2015 for money he was owed from his music. But that was the past, and it didn't really matter because Cash Money still had their biggest superstar, Lil Wayne. Wayne actually tried leaving the label to sign with Jay-Z in 2005. But him and Jay-Z never ended up forming a partnership.
I was hollering that whole, the conversation was about me joining Def Jam or the Rockefeller team or whatever. You know, we didn't agree on certain days or whatever the situation was, it didn't work out. And I'm here where I am, but you know, it's all love.
Instead, Wayne renegotiated his contract with Birdman and Cash Money, and in the same year, they created Young Money. So from 2005 to 2007, most of the original Young Money members had very little success on the label, and they quickly left, as Wayne's priority was to become the best rapper alive. His popularity grew massively in 2007, and he was constantly being pitched to artists who wanted to sign to Young Money. According to Jay Mills, who was one of Young Money's first members, Wayne wasn't actively hunting to sign the next Drake or Nicki Minaj. He was focused on the music, not the business. When asked about Young Money, Jay Mills said, Wayne never really wanted all of us to be like, quote-unquote, signed to Young Money. He wanted us to be Young Money, a group, and we do some Wu-Tang stuff and all get deals. I know this sounds crazy, but he never really wanted us all to be signed to him. He wanted to give us a platform and we go rep Young Money and get deals everywhere, but we're still like this conglomerate. Omarion, another original member of Young Money, had similar thoughts. He said, so I signed my deal with Young Money. I was supposed to get my advance. And basically, within that time, my check didn't come, and that raised a lot of questions for me, like what type of business was being done. He went on to say, Wayne wasn't like a boss, he was an artist. So now you have Wayne, who's the biggest rapper in the world at the time, and one of the only rappers still signed to the shady Cash Money label. He decides to start his own label under Cash Money. At the time, most of Young Money's artists had no real buzz, so standing next to the biggest rapper in the world was a big look for them. Making great music with the biggest rapper in the game was the main priority. But as a result...
This is what Kendrick was talking about. He said he was signed to a nigga that was signed to a nigga that said he was signed to that nigga.
The finances and business side of things took a backseat, and they weren't the biggest focus at the label. Now, the first artist off Young Money who had hits on the charts wasn't actually Drake or Nicki Minaj. It was Tyga. Tyga met Wayne at the 2008 VMA award show and signed to Young Money shortly after. Before signing, he already had an album on the charts and a hit song called Coconut Juice. Even though he started off as the most successful artist on the label, he quickly got overshadowed by the success of Nicki and Drake. But we'll touch on that a bit later. After signing to Young Money, it took Tyga 3 years to drop his first album on the label. In 2012, it finally came out, and it actually performed pretty well, selling 68,000 copies in its first week, and spawning the hits Rack City and Faded with Lil Wayne. A year later in 2013, he dropped his second album with Young Money. That album didn't perform as well, and it was pretty quiet for Tyga until the end of 2014, when he left a comment on Instagram saying, "The Gold album is done. My label's holding me hostage, so I can't release nothing. Might just leak it for my fans instead of letting the label make money off it." When a fan asked if he was still on Young Money, he replied, "Not for long." The president of Young Money, Mac Main, responded to him by saying, "Don't forget about putting limes in the coconuts. What you rep didn't make you or build you." He's basically implying that before signing to Young Money, Tyga was making corny hits, and it was thanks to working with Wayne that he was able to cement himself as a legitimate artist. Now, at the time, it seemed kind of odd that Tyga wanted to leave Young Money. He had a decent success, he was one of the only artists along with Drake and Nicki who actually got to release an album while they were on the label, and he actually had hits. But his music got worse and his popularity started to dry up. He also started dating Kylie Jenner at the time, and he became more known for being with her than for his music. It was for all these reasons that Young Money wasn't releasing his album, but it was eventually revealed that he also was not getting paid what he was owed. Tyga revealed that he was owed $12 million from Young Money, and he actually paid them $1 million of his own money to end his contract with the label. After leaving the label, he broke up with Kylie Jenner and he fell off pretty hard. He put out the Gold album, which was the album that Young Money refused to release. and it only ended up selling 3,000 copies. But fast forward to 2018, and he ended up making the greatest comeback of all time with his hit single Taste. And to this day, him and Wayne still make music together, and Tyga actually dedicated an entire music video to Wayne. Now, Tyga's departure from Young Money was bittersweet, but his career didn't go as bad as some of the other artists on the label. Around the time that Tyga signed to the label in 2008, Wayne was also introduced to Drake, Nicki Minaj, and most of the other members of the label. Aside from the shady business deals, it was Drake and Nicki Minaj's popularity that also played a massive role in the downfall of Young Money. I'll explain that later on in this video, but at the time of being signed, all the Young Money members, besides Tyga, were on the same playing field. They had no hits, very little buzz, no big albums out, and they were just lucky to be standing next to the best rapper alive. So Wayne signs about 10 artists to Young Money in 2008. In 2009, the group dropped the hit songs Bedrock and Every Girl, along with their group album titled We Are Young Money. Bedrock was the song that really put Nicki Minaj on the map, starting her monstrous feature run, no pun intended, where she ended up getting on the hit songs My Chick Bad by Ludacris, Bottoms Up by Trey Songz, Monster by Kanye, and many more. Drake also went on a crazy feature run after signing to Young Money, which led him to drop his classic mixtape So Far Gone. While this was the beginning of prosperous careers for artists like Drake and Nicki, it was the beginning of the end for nearly every artist.
The one that Brand New was on?
I mean, if you were following Young Money back in the day, you probably remember Gutta Gutta, T Streets, Corey Guns, J Mill, Shanell, and the two little kids, Twist and Lil Chucky, who must have been signed when Wayne was sipping some really strong cough medicine. Now, unfortunately, none of these artists had much success with their careers at Young Money. Gutta Gutta, J Mills, T Streets, and Shanell had features on a lot of Wayne projects, but they never ended up dropping their own albums. This was probably because when you're standing next to a rapper as talented as Wayne, it's hard to stand out and make a name for yourself. But there were some really dope artists on Young Money who had a lot of potential, but they also never had an album release. For example, Corey Guns was on the original version of A Milli by Lil Wayne, and he had a feature on Wayne's massive song, 6 Foot 7 Foot, which sold over 7 million records. He stood his ground, and you could argue that he rapped as well as Wayne did on those songs. But even with his talent, Corey was never able to put out his own album. In 2020, when Corey Guns' dad was asked about his son signing to Young Money, he said, "It's bittersweet because I know how the industry could spit you up. One minute you'll be hot, then not be hot, and I never want my kids to go through that. I'd rather them have a steady income." Like, for instance, where is Corey now? He's got 1 million songs, he's working, he's still on Young Money, believe it or not. But Corey's such a phenomenal rapper. In my era, Corey would have been a superstar already. But the era we live in, you almost gotta dumb it down somewhat, and he was just never willing to dumb it down to the point where people could all the way get it. Now that could be true for a lot of rappers on Young Money. As we saw with Tyga,
yeah, because even Lil Wayne dumbed it down. And I guess that's why I hated, Lollipop, for example, is because I'm just like, why? It was such a commercial, corny song that was so different than the music that I loved from him. So that's why I personally hated Lollipop. Because whenever I say that, people are like, how you don't like Lollipop? Because I know good music. And I know good Lil Wayne music. And that is not good Lil Wayne music. If you know about his catalog at all, you would know that is one of the worst songs that he's put out. Well, he's put out some bad ones. But I feel like it's up there with some of the worst ones. So it was just kind of disappointing. And I was just like, oh my God. So yeah, but so I agree with him, and I feel like Lil Wayne did, play the game, so to speak, which I'm not knocking him for. A lot of artists do that, then that's what's needed for you to be this global, huge megastar.
Song or any sort of popularity at the
Every
time,
song can't be a fucking Milli.
It's unfortunate because with the right branding, artists like Corey Guns, J Mills, and even Shanell could have had prosperous careers. But the label was so busy with Wayne and later Drake and Nicki that they didn't invest in the proper marketing for their less popular artists. Maybe it didn't seem like it was worth it, since none of them were able to create their own popularity. Now, as for Lil Chucky and Lil Twist, the marketing approach that Young Money took for them was actually pretty interesting. When Wayne was creating Young Money in 2008, Lil Chucky was just 13 years old.
I never heard Lil Chucky in my life.
15. Wayne explained that he signed these two rappers at such a young age because his daughter was a fan of them. He said, "Anytime my daughter's a fan of you, it means you got started." They were both groomed to be the next Lil Wayne. Everything from the way they dressed, the dreads, the cadences of their raps. Wayne said himself that he was going to paint Lil Chucky as the new Lil Wayne. On paper, that sounds like a great idea, right? Let two young kids be mentored by the greatest rapper alive and try to turn them into the next version of that. But unlike Corey Guns, they couldn't rap nearly as well as Lil Wayne. And unlike Drake, they couldn't make hits the same way Wayne's daughter maybe thought they could. Lil Chucky stayed on the label for about 5 years and eventually left without putting out a single album or song. In a 2014 interview with Sway in the Morning, when he was asked about his situation with Young Money, Lil Chucky rapped, "You've been hot and they know it, and still releases they hold it, always had music, labels just wasn't supporting. Guess signing that deal wasn't really all that after all the boasting." basically stating that he always had the music, it was always there, but the label just never supported him. They always held back his music, never dropped his albums. And after all the instant gratification and excitement that comes from signing to a guy as prolific as Wayne, actually being on his label probably wasn't what you thought it was when your albums and music just keeps getting delayed. Lil Twist, on the other hand, is actually still signed to Young Money, and he put out a couple singles with Lil Wayne and Busta Rhymes in the early 2010s, unlike Lil Chucky. At the time, he was good friends with Justin Bieber. Now, while Tyga became less known for his music on Young Money and more known for his relationship with Kylie Jenner, Lil Twist suffered from the same effect, where he was also less known for his music and more known for his relationship with Justin Bieber. This was at a time when Bieber was getting himself into a lot of legal trouble, and Twist claims that Bieber's team made him take drug charges for Justin because those charges would have negatively impacted Bieber's reputation as a young artist. But for Twist, a couple drug charges wouldn't hurt his brand as badly, since he already rapped about that type of stuff and he was associated with Lil Wayne. When he was asked about it, Twist said that Bieber had politically correct people around him who can control his life, and I wasn't that guy. I just let him know, you're not a puppet, and he looked up to me and Wayne so much, and that's what I hated. I had control of their cash cow. With TMZ constantly reporting that Twist is getting Bieber into trouble, the two eventually stopped hanging out as much, and Twist was just painted as the bad guy. No one really cared about his music beyond his association and controversy with Lil Wayne and Justin Bieber. As for Drake, it was the absolute complete opposite. Aside from creating music that changed the course of hip-hop, blending R&B and rap in a way that's never been done before, Drake had an extremely clean reputation.
You gotta give Drake his props for that, and I feel like Drake is a legend in his own right, and he will go down as such, and you can never take that away from him. Not Kendrick, not nobody. Nobody can take away the impact that this man has had on hip-hop. And he has so many amazing songs, whether he wrote them or not. His face is attached to them, and that's how we know them is through him. He performed them, so hey, there's that. But yes, I agree with what he's saying about Drake.
Cared more about his music than his affiliation with Wayne or other big artists. According to Lil Twist, Drake met Lil Wayne at the A Milli video shoot, and he brought him a portfolio full of headshots from Degrassi, which was the TV show that Drake was on before he became a rapper. Twist said that from the beginning, Drake was professional and well put together. Wayne flipped through the portfolio that Drake brought him and immediately told his management team to sign Drake. Now, while it's definitely true that Drake has always been professional, the story of how Wayne signed him is different depending on who you ask. Jazz Prince Jr.
Because what headshots got to do with how you rap? Like, nigga, you ain't bringing me a tape. You like, here are my headshots. This is what I look like. What? Nigga, I'm seeing you in person. I see your face. What are we doing? But, all right.
Who initially found Drake on MySpace, claims that when he first showed Wayne Drake's music, Weezy said, Jazz, don't ever play this for me again. He sucks. Jazz claims that later on he was in the car with Wayne and played him Drake's A Milli remix. Then he played him Drake's song Brand New. When Wayne heard that Drake can rap and sing, that was the moment he wanted to sign. Wayne found Nicki in a similar way, as he heard her rapping on the Come Up DVD and immediately knew he wanted to sign. Both Drake and Nicki blew up almost instantly. They dropped mixtapes in 2009, then they both went on insane feature runs where they were out rapping hip-hop vets like Kanye, Wayne, Bun B, Rick Ross, and more. By 2010, Wayne was sent to prison for 8 months, and it was up to Drake and Nicki to make sure Young Money stayed relevant. While all the other Young Money artists failed to create a buzz for themselves, Drake and Nicki put out their first albums, with each of them selling over 300,000 copies first week and going platinum in that same year. By the time Wayne came out of jail, Drake and Nicki were on top of the world. Tyga was about to put out his first album, and Wayne was bigger than ever. But while
that's crazy. Nicki didn't even do that this time. She sold like 200 and something, right? Something like that. So, yeah, it just goes to show that back then, people actually bought music a lot more than they do now. So all artists were just selling more. Like, it's not like that anymore.
These top artists were only getting hotter. This is when the downfall of the label truly began. According to Jay Mills, there was a lot of jealousy between him and the Young Money members. In 2009, they were all small artists, and Wayne would bring all of them out to perform at his shows. But now you have Drake and Nicki, who are superstars, so they were going out on their own tours, but they weren't bringing the rest of Young Money with them. Jay Mills said that when Drake did his 2012 tour, he was extremely disappointed because Drake brought out A$AP Rocky, Kendrick, 2 Chainz, basically all the biggest artists at the time. But he didn't think of bringing out Jay Mills or any other Young Money artists. He said, even if we're not hot like that, make us hot. Someone made you hot. To be fair, I was in my feelings, but we were a crew. And in a way, Jay Mills kind of had a point, right? Wayne made Drake and Nicki hot, so they could return the favor by putting their spotlight on some of the Young Money artists that they came up with. If you go back to any Drake or Nicki album, you won't see a single Young Money feature besides Tyga on a remix to The Motto by Drake. It was obvious that Drake and Nicki were on another level, and the label's focus was on making them bigger and completely ignoring the careers of the rest of the Young Money artists. By 2014, the animosity amongst Young Money members became even worse. Drake, Nicki, and Tyga were the only artists to release any albums on Young Money. And while Tyga was fighting to leave the label, he did an interview with Vibe magazine where he said, "I don't really get along with Drake. I don't really get along with Nicki. I don't like Drake as a person. He's just fake to me. I think his music is good, but we're all different as people. We were forced together. I try to be cool with everybody, but sometimes everybody just has their own different personalities." When Wayne was the only superstar, all the Young Money artists were standing next to him, trying to make a name for themselves. But as Drake and Nicki became bigger than Wayne, it seemed like every Young Money artist got overshadowed by them, and the label didn't see the value in investing into their careers. It's almost like a TV show. You have the main characters, and as the show develops, you'll get some background characters who are lucky to have a couple lines throughout the entire series. If those background characters have personalities that stand out, you'll see more of them as the show progresses. So now you have 3 main actors, and 7 people in the background who aren't seeing any marketing efforts from their label. They're being overshadowed by superstars and getting no help from anyone around them. But to make it worse, not only were they not getting marketed properly, but they also weren't getting paid properly. By the end of 2014, almost 10 years after Wayne started the Young Money label, he sued Birdman for $51 million, claiming that he was never properly paid for profits from Drake, Nicki, Tyga, and even his own music. Remember how the label wasn't letting Tyga release his Gold album? Well, now they weren't letting Wayne, who was once the biggest artist on the label, release his highly anticipated album, The Carter 5. Now, if the boss of the label isn't getting paid and they won't release his own album, what makes you think they're going to spend money to put out a J Mills project or pay Gutta Gutta anything? The future of Young Money lied in the hands of Birdman as Wayne fought to end his partnership with Cash Money and began dissing him at his shows. At the time, Birdman was busy turning Young Thug into a superstar, and there were even rumors that Thug and Birdman had someone shoot up Wayne's tour bus after Wayne dissed them. The same way J Mills and Tyga had some form of animosity towards Drake's superstardom, it seemed that at this point in Wayne's career, he may have had a similar form of resentment towards Young Thug's rise in popularity and the mentorship he was getting from Birdman. According to Young Thug, when Birdman introduced the two artists, Wayne refused to shake Thug's hand. Thug was like the predecessor that Wayne wanted Lil Chucky and Lil Twist to be. But this is a common theme in the music industry, right? Artists sign bad contracts when they're young and they're desperate, and once their music isn't as hot as it used to be, they don't get promoted or paid by their labels. J Mills put it perfectly when he said, "I know what it was like to be great, and somebody comes around and they are just undeniable." Nicki was undeniable. Drake was undeniable. Let's say there was 10 of us. To hit with 3, the way that you hit, now some people might say, "Mills, you're being a little too cordial with that because you weren't one of those 3. That's how it works sometimes. Keep it moving, figure it out. That wasn't my first stop on the train, and it's not gonna be my last. I knew this wouldn't last forever, and I feel like a lot of people thought it was gonna last forever." So to sum it up, Young Money's run was revolutionary, and it changed the sound of hip-hop forever. In the end, Lil Wayne will go down as one of the best rappers of all time, with one of the best labels in music history. But he didn't start Young Money to purely profit off these artists. Instead, it was to help them become as great of an artist as he was. But there's only so much that someone else can do for you. To artists like Nicki Minaj, Drake, and Tyga, they knew that being in Wayne's shadow wouldn't last forever. They needed to make a name for themselves. There's always going to be someone better than you. There's always going to be a bad contract on the table. But it's up to you to work your way out of that and stand out from everyone else. Wayne built a conglomerate that no one else in hip-hop will ever be able to replicate. And out of 10 artists, to hit on 3 the way that he hit, that's some pretty incredible shit. Let me know down in the comments.
Facts. Wow, this was really, really well done and a lot of information that I didn't know. But it puts everything into perspective. And yeah, they all had issues with their label. Birdman ain't shit. That's what I gathered. That's the moral of the story. He tried to rob all these people, even Lil Wayne, who he knew since he was 12. He knew Lil Wayne when he was a child and signed that child and was taking advantage of him financially all those years. Crazy, but very interesting. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Let me know what other videos you want to watch, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.